Joining us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline to talk more about the Flyers. They have just, 3 games left. 3 games that are very winnable games, Pete Thompson. Sam Carchidi from the Inquirer, he joins us now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. How you been, Sam?
Hey, Mike. Hey, Pete. How you doing?
All is well, and they got the 2 points yesterday, much needed. With 3 games left with where they sit, you're feeling confident that at least some sort of playoff berth, regardless of who the matchup, you feel a lot better today than maybe we did on Saturday.
No question. Yeah, they'll be in the playoffs, and it's just a matter, like you guys were talking a little while ago, it's a matter of which matchup they get, which is better for them. But, my contention is if you're playing well going into the playoffs, that'll carry over to a certain extent. And, they've played very well now. They're 5-0-3. They've been up and down, as you guys know, but they played very well lately, and they have a lot of confidence. I talked to Travis Konechny about this yesterday, and I said, hey, if you end up playing Boston, is this going to help you? If you face them in the first round. He says, we don't look at it like that. We're confident no matter who we face. We feel we can beat anybody. And, that's the attitude of this team. They've had their ups and downs, but I don't think many teams want to play them because they can be a very dangerous team, especially with Brian Elliott coming back. And it looks like he'll be back probably for the next to last game or the last game. And that's a big question mark. How sharp will he be after being off for like 7 weeks or so?
Well, Sam, I was going to ask you that very question. Mrazek got the call yesterday. Coatsy was on with us last week. He hinted that maybe Elliott was going to get the start yesterday, so we had our eyes on that because he was the first guy out on the ice at practice the other day. But do you think that Elliott not only gets a start in one of these last 3 games, but is the guy they turn to in the playoffs?
I think the answer is yes, but with an asterisk. I mean, it depends how he looks. I mean, if he doesn't seem ready, I'd be really surprised if he got to start tomorrow. I think Mrazek, who has been really sharp the last 2 games, I think Mrazek goes tomorrow against the Islanders in Brooklyn. Thursday's game would not be surprised, if they go to Elliott against Carolina, and they have to get him ready. And these games are important. I mean, they could finish as high as second right now. I mean, and it's not really far-fetched. They could go 2-0-1, and with their schedule, that's not far-fetched at all. If the Penguins go 1-1, let's just say they lose to Columbus and then beat Ottawa, and if Columbus loses to Nashville and beats Detroit and Pittsburgh, and the Flyers, as I said, went 2-0-1, the Flyers would finish second. And, I'm not as leery of the Penguins as I was maybe a month ago. I don't think the Penguins are as strong as they were. Certainly not as strong as they've been in past seasons. I think the Flyers have a better matchup against Washington and certainly against Columbus. But I think it will be a long series. I think the Penguins will be favored. But I see that series going 7, and when it goes to 7 games, anybody can win. I think the Penguins are a good team. But the Flyers are right there with them. But, a lot of people I know are panicking, you don't want to play the Penguins, you don't want to play the Penguins. Flyers are a pretty good team right now. I think the fact that guys like Konechny and Couturier have developed, all of a sudden the Flyers are a pretty good team. Some of the young guys have developed a lot quicker than we thought. Gosper, of course, is having a spectacular year. Provorov, who I thought hit a bump in the road maybe about 3 weeks ago. He steadied himself now the last couple of games. It looks like he's back on track. So, this team is going in the right direction.
Sam Carchidi is with us. He's the author of the book, If These Walls Could Talk, with Lou Nolan, talking about Lou's first 50 years with the organization. Now, Mother's Day not far away, so if you're looking for a Mother's Day present for your mom who's the hockey fan, If These Walls Could Talk. So, Sam, let's talk a little bit. You talk about the Penguins don't scare you. You heard my narrative a little bit there, but I guess the question is, do you subscribe to the theory that this is a better hockey team on the road than at home for some reason?
Yeah. Well, the numbers support that, Pete. They have been better. I think they play a more simple game on the road. Some of the players have talked to me about this. They say, hey, they try to get a little too fancy sometimes at home, trying to impress the home crowd. They make that one pass too many, where you just shoot the puck. Like yesterday, they had a 2-on-0 and never got a shot on goal on a 2-on-0. That kind of thing cannot happen. And I think if you're on the road, that doesn't happen. I think you just, you play steady hockey and you just try to cash in on your breaks, but they try to do too much at home. That said, I think the crowd at the Wells Fargo Center, I would say during the season, the crowd is just in the middle of the pack, maybe even a little lower as far as crowd noise. But when you get to the playoffs, the Wells Fargo Center goes in the top 5 for crowd noise. I think the fans, like the players, they can't wait for the playoffs, and it's something special to watch a game at the Wells Fargo Center during the postseason. During the regular season, they're into it, but it's not nearly as loud as some of the places like Vegas or Winnipeg or Montreal and even Pittsburgh. So and I think they'll play better at home during the postseason than they did during the regular season. But I hear what you're saying. There's no question they have been a better team, a more structured team on the road than they have been at home.
I want to loop back to Ivan Provorov because you brought his name up a minute ago, and what a resource you guys have to have Mark Howe occasionally sitting in the press box to go ask him about Ivan Provorov. I mean, this is a guy that at that age almost generally always makes the right play. What do you think was his speed bump, and what do you think led to him turning the corner?
Yeah, you know what? He's played a lot of minutes. I mean, he's playing about 23, 24 minutes a game, and it seems like he's been here forever. But this is just his second year, and he's had a different partner in the second half of the year, and he was with McDonald for a good portion. He's been with Ghost in the second half, and just the normal wear and tear. I think he went through maybe a stretch where he was a little tired, but he seems to be rejuvenated the last few games, and he's playing like he did for most of the first part of the year, and for really most of this year. He's had a really good year, but there for about 3 weeks he was committing a lot of turnovers, and he just seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I think, like I said, I think he's rejuvenated now. They had a few days off, and he looks like his old self, and they're going to need him. I think Travis Sanheim, another young defenseman, has played really well. I thought he was terrific yesterday against Boston. You just wonder about Robert Haig, another rookie, if he'll be back in the lineup. He went into a little dry spell, and now he's going to have a hard time getting back because Sanheim is playing so well. But, in a way, it's a good problem to have. When you have somebody like Robert Haig who is, waiting to get in the lineup, he's a pretty good player to have. So they have more depth than in past years, and they certainly have more depth on the forward line, too. Michael Raffl, he's ready to go back into the game. I think he may play. He's ready to play tomorrow. Whether he goes in or not, I'm not sure, because Matt Reed has been a big surprise since he came up from Lehigh Valley. He's played extremely well. He hasn't scored, but he's getting a lot of chances. He's creating chances, and more importantly, he's been very good on the penalty kill. So you just wonder if Raffl will be back in the lineup. Maybe they take Laterra out, or maybe Raffl is just a healthy scratch. It's a good problem to have all this depth.
Sam Carchidi, the Flyers beat writer for the Inquirer and Daily News here on the Sports Bash Boardwalk Honda Hotline. And Claude Giroux, I mean, I see you talking a lot about maybe being the MVP, but there was a lot of people, myself included, who thought, man, is he at the end of the line here? Should the Flyers, try to make some phone calls? And now we know he has a no movement clause, so that was nearly impossible. But what have you seen, Sam, that has changed so much to where this guy looked like, maybe his run in Philadelphia was wearing thin to where he is right now, but leading this team to a playoff berth and being in the MVP conversation?
Yeah, 2 words, Mike. Good health. I think, he's healthy this year. He was just a shell of himself for most of last year. We saw that he didn't have that second gear, and some people thought that, hey, age was catching up to him, even though he's only 29 last year. But, he had the abdominal and the hip surgery, as did Ghost, Shane Gostisbehere last year. Ghost, to me, it took him like maybe 3/4 of a year to look like himself. I think we saw a little bit of Giroux in maybe the last month of last year, but he just wasn't himself. Both of them had great training sessions this summer, and both have been healthy from the get-go. And, as a result, you see the results. And to me, it's amazing what he's done because, when he had his 93-point year, his career best until this year, he was the young kid on the line. The line then was, of course, the great Jaromir Jagr and Scotty Hartnell. And, he was the young kid. Now he's the veteran on the line. And to me, what he's done to help Couturier, to help Konechny develop their games, that to me may put him at the top of the MVP talk. There are some great candidates. Kucherov from Tampa Bay is certainly one. Malkin is one. McKinnon, if Colorado makes the playoffs. Marchand is a great candidate. Giroux is right there with him. I mean, we'll have to look at it really hard, and a lot of it depends on where these teams finish. But I think Giroux's going to get, a lot of support. If he's not in the top three, something's wrong. And he could win it. I mean, he has been Mr. Clutch lately. He's second in the league in assists. He's in the top three in points. I think he's fourth last I looked in faceoffs. And like I said, the way he has mentored Couturier, who's having a career year, Konechny having a career year, that speaks volumes about him. And let's not forget, he's playing a new position. He never played left wing in the NHL before. So you put all that together, you have a great candidate for the NHL MVP.
Conversely, last year, the guy who everybody was talking about was Simmons, and it seemingly this year, he's the guy that has kind of faded off a little bit. What have you seen from Simmons' game? Is health a similar answer to why he hasn't been nearly as effective?
It was for the first half of the year. He's healthy now, and now he's on a third line. So, and he's also on the power play. So, he's still getting production there. But, he had 4 different injuries in the first, I'd say, 40 games. That really slowed him down. In an off year, he's still going to score 24 goals around there. So, he has not had a typical Wayne Simmons year. But, again, I do blame most of that on the injuries. He's been much better in the second half of the year. But it seemed like every time he would finally start to get into a flow, another injury would come up. But you're right, they're going to really need him down the stretch and in the playoffs because, especially on the power play, he makes that power play work. His presence in front of the net is second to none. But I do blame injuries for him. I mean, without the injuries, I think he would have 29, 30 goals right now, which is a typical Wayne Simmons year. But it's interesting because, as you know, he'll be a free agent after next year. And he may be a guy the Flyers, look at and say, hey, he's on the downside of his career. Maybe we should move him now if we can get like a first and a third round pick and maybe a prospect for him. I think you really have to consider it. But right now, they're not even concerned about that. They're thinking about the first round of the playoffs and making some noise in the playoffs.
Sam Carchidi, follow him at Broad Street Bull on Twitter for more Flyers news. They got 3 left to go. And, of course, Flyers playoff hockey, if they get in, which looks like they will, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Thank you, Sam.
All right, guys. Thank you.